Well, hello there. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be potentially too much information for some people to handle. But I want to just have a conversation about sex, about intimacy, about long-term love and what it really takes to sustain the passion over time. So I'm just going to pop a link in the comments because as soon as I'm starting to talk, you're going to be like, I want to know mine. So there's a link in the comments. There's a quiz that you're going to want to do. I'm going to reference it. My friend Jaya is an amazing teacher of sex and a sexologist, and she speaks on Tony Robbins' stage, and she's been on all the shows, and she's amazing. And what she's put together is a quiz that helps you to identify what turns you on, what fuels your desire, what works for your body, and a simple quiz to be able to decipher that. And she also is hosting a free training tomorrow I'll talk about. So if you're like, I want to know mine, you can do that with the link in the comments. So, okay. It's no surprise that I work with couples around their intimacy and their relationship, and women around their sex life, and that's been my journey. And so what I want to say about my journey, I want to speak from a new position. Maybe you've seen some of my videos in the past, or I might reshare them here in the next couple of days, but I found myself in a relationship that I wanted to be in, that I loved, that I desired, and was attracted to my partner, but I didn't want to have sex. I wasn't interested in having sex. I didn't enjoy having sex. And over time, that created a real separation in our relationship. That created a lot of frustration, a lot of questioning of like, should we even be together? Are we compatible? And so I just started to develop this belief that I wasn't sexual, that I am not interested in sex, that I just don't enjoy sex. You know how some people say like, oh, like sex is better than chocolate. Like, I was always the type of person that's like, no, give me the chocolate. I could go without sex, in fact. And so whether that's your experience or not, I know that you can relate to having unfulfilling sex. But at the same time, there was a desire in me to improve my relationship sexually or intimately. Like I wanted to like it. I wanted to enjoy it. And so when I thought of sex, and as most of you have as well, we learned about sex as one thing. We saw it one way on the movies, we heard about it one way on TV, and we sort of have been doing it one way since we started doing it. And that is true for so many people. And it's like we have this boring, same old sex. And of course, passion dies and fades, and we lose interest, and people cheat, and all of the things, right? Of course, that's what's happening. I'm not surprised. So what I love about this work of the Erotic Blueprints, which you can take the quiz with my link in the comments, is that it was the first time that someone showed me that there was a variety of sex. And when I had just heard about it, I hadn't even taken the quiz yet. She lays out these 5 core blueprints of ways that our bodies can be turned on and enjoy intimacy and sexuality. And right away, sexual was one of them. And sexual was the only way that I had ever thought about having sex, which was like, okay, basically we're going to get right to it. You might have a little bit of foreplay, but right away they're going to touch your boobs or touch your genitals, or you're going to like get right to it. I remember my partner coming and he might like grab my ass or like try to give me a hug or a kiss, and it would just be like, and over time we created this dynamic that it's like I always pulled away from him, and I just like didn't want it, and I'd lay in bed at night and I would just like think about his desire. I knew he wanted to touch me, and just like, please don't touch me. And I hated feeling that way because I also wanted to be in the relationship and I loved my partner. So it was very, very confusing to me. And so this was the first time that she sort of laid out for me, like, is a variety of sexuality. And this made me really excited because one of the ways was sexual. And I had been saying, I'm just not a sexual person. And I was right. So I am an erotic person, as are you. I have the capacity to experience connection and intimacy and eroticism. But when we think of sexuality, it's kind of like the mainstream way that everyone has been taught, or that we see on porn. And, you know, it's like women getting like hard and fast and quick penetration, and it's like they're so like loving these orgasms, and you know, that's just not me. And so she like freed me, because I felt like it was never going to happen for me. Like I felt like I was never going to enjoy sex, that I was going to either have to choose to leave the relationship so that my partner could be fulfilled elsewhere, or I was never going to get to experience the kind of intimacy that I really desired. And I don't know if you've ever felt like that, but that's really painful. That is no longer my reality because of these blueprints. So when I first took the quiz, right away, the first thing, and I took this quiz like years ago now, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I'll say 4 years ago. I took the quiz, and right away, my primary blueprint was energetic. And I was like, well, what the heck is that? So it sent me down this huge rabbit hole of understanding why I pulled back. Oh my goodness, it's not because I don't like my partner. Oh my goodness. Then I could communicate to him, and it's like, oh, I'm pulling away from you because I'm so sensitive energetically that I actually need you to not just come and grab me. That shock and surprise, a sexual likes that. They want that, but an energetic like myself, that just like shuts them down instantaneously. So what this also put me on to was starting to follow the clues to my turn on and to my desire. So there were things like I would often feel desire and attraction and like sexual tension and energy with other people. I would feel desire and attraction and turn on when my partner was away from me. I would feel desire and attraction and turn on when we were in a public setting, but then not once we got home. So all of these things started making sense because I was energetic. So with another person, I love flirting. I love meeting men still to this day and having conversations with them, knowing that we're not going to be intimate. Or it's just that playful energy of in between two people. And I mean, flirtation is one of the first things to go inside of a relationship. So maybe in the beginning couple of weeks of my relationship, we were able to ride on that because there was still that, like, you don't touch each other quickly in new settings, right? You sort of communicate and you're flirting and you're building that anticipation and that tension. But once you get into a long-term relationship, you kind of just like go for it. And for an energetic, that like totally takes all of my desire away. So this was what I learned. I also learned that I felt really safe to feel my sexuality when my partner, say when we were in a public place or when we were in a place where we wouldn't be intimate, or like he wouldn't just like grab my boobs. And I would feel my turn on increase in those situations. And then when we got home, it would die. And because I felt this safety to like let my sexuality expand and to feel it, knowing that nothing was going to happen. Because I didn't have the skills at that time to ask for what I wanted and to slow things down enough for me to enjoy them. So I'm sharing all this with you to hopefully inspire you for whatever types of challenges with intimacy that you're having, to go and do the quiz. To go and do the quiz, to get the foundation. If you have a partner or many partners, get them to do the quiz as well, because it's going to help you to really understand not just the challenges that you're having, but how to have like way better experiences. Because now, like 4 years later, I've done my quiz multiple times, but what's really cool now is to see how my numbers have shifted, how I've followed the clues of my turn on and my desire to find new things out about myself that it's like I realized were shut down in childhood, or that I realized were just conditioned out of me from society, like that's not okay, or that's like weird or gross or bad. And you know, we all have this type of programming around our sexuality, and it really is a journey that we get to go on of letting that stuff go, so that you can, because ultimately what I'm about, at least, I'm about full expression of yourself, absolutely, and I'm really passionate about long-term love. And how do we have fulfilling relationships that keep evolving over time, that we don't want to leave just because the fire dies out? How do we find a way to cultivate that excitement and that passion? And so what's exciting now? So my very close running for the last couple of years now with energetic has been kinky. And so I would have completely rejected that many, many times. Especially since having a trauma background as well. I used to think some of my desires or dreams or fantasies were like bad, like oh, I'm just like fucked up because I was sexually abused. Or I remember sometimes like maybe sharing things or the types of movies that I might like or intimate scenes, and it being like, people might say like, oh, like that's weird or wrong, or and all of that sort of got programmed in my mind. So what was happening inside of my relationship is this is like, I didn't even know what worked for me or what turned me on. Because I was trying to always do sex the same way and it just wasn't working for me. So there's that side of it, but then there's also a side of that my partner has a completely different blueprint. Guess what? He is sexual primarily, which means in stereotypical ways, sex is easy for him. But what's been really awesome is also learning this together, because some people say, well, it's kind of defeating, because what I hear a lot is like, oh yeah, great, I'm energetic, and oh yeah, my partner's sexual. We already knew that. We're opposites. Well, that's not empowering. What is empowering, and what Jai, who's the creator of these blueprints, shared with me, she said, your blueprint shows you where you're limited. So what's been really fun and interesting is initially, remember this, I'm a few years into this journey. I'm about to do their course again for the third time. I've been diving into this work for a very long time. But in the beginning, what we started with was just understanding our own blueprints and our own desires and what worked for us. And then how do we actually teach each other what it is we need and what it is we want so that we can start engaging intimately in a fulfilling way at all. And so that was really the starting place, and now what's been really cool is that we've both got to expand. He's become a lot more sensual. Men aren't trained or not trained. Men are encouraged to experience their sensuality, right? In porn, men are like dominant penetration, and like that's not all men. All men are not that. Some women are that. And so this isn't a gender thing as well all of a sudden. And so my partner, he's been able to become more sensual. I'm not going to speak too much to his experience, but, he likes a lot more sensual things. He does like things a lot, more slow as well. But it's like he was never able to know or understand that or appreciate or tap into that because men are programmed to be like these manly, like penetration men. That's the only way to describe it. And that's actually not true for a lot of men. And so no matter what gender you are, you can be any of the blueprints. So it's not that men are sexual and women are sensual. That's not true at all. And in fact, if that's your belief, that's probably tripping you up. And sometimes we think that we have to be a certain way sexually because we're trying to satisfy our partners. I need to be more dominant because that's what my partner needs, or that's what they're going to find attractive. But this is really about figuring out what really does work for you so that you can have your most delicious, fulfilling experience of intimacy. So what I've really enjoyed the most about this journey has been understanding how erotic I am, which is amazing. And now, this is my work and my world. So that's really cool. That's been the best gift. But the second thing is understanding how to have new experiences, how to touch each other differently, how to keep our intimacy new and fresh. And it's been really cool to watch our blueprints transform. So I've also learned how to get into sex more quickly. In the beginning, it had to be really slow, almost painfully slow for my partner. It's like I needed just so much warm up, and which is fine, but it's not always fine. If you don't always have the time or the energy or so it's been really cool to watch our blueprints evolve, and also now just owning what works for me and inviting my partner into trying new things that was really awesome for him and exciting for him, but it's like he might have never ventured into that territory on his own, and vice versa. So I'm sharing all of this with you because I definitely want people to be talking about this more. Default sex makes me want to vomit. And that's what everybody is having. You're having the same sex that you've been probably having since high school. You're doing it the same way. You're approaching it the same way. Or you're barely talking about it. You're just doing it. And so if you're not talking about it, that's a really big problem. If you're not talking about what works for your partner, if you guys have had kids, if you've gone through any hard times, your partner does not want to be touched the same. Let me repeat that. If you've had children, if you've gone through any hard times or stressful situations, if you've changed at all since the beginning of your relationship, so has your sexuality, so has your desires. And what pulls us apart in relationships and our intimacy and what makes us desire other people and why cheating is so high and why divorce is so high is that we don't have these conversations. We don't free our own sexuality. We don't unlearn that, oh, I'm a little kinky, and what does that mean? And how can I embrace that? How can I share that with my partner and not tuck it away and let it come out when I cheat? So much cheating and desire to move outside of the relationship or leave the relationship, grass is greener on the other side, is because I see an opportunity to express and be more of me that I can't be here. And it's not that you can't be it in your relationship, it's that you're sort of stuck in the mud having the same conversations you've always had. And so I can very much appreciate that it's difficult to move into new territory. There's new territory that I want to move into, that I'm afraid to bring up. Things that I want to try, conversations I want to have, new things I've learned about my sexuality that I'm like, oh. Yeah, and I've been through this many, many times, and I have no idea. I feel like I'm like maybe 1/8 expressed sexually. There's so much more that I want. I'm at a point now where I can have sex, and I enjoy it. I don't have sex when I don't enjoy it. I don't have sex when I don't want to do it. I know what works for me. We play with our blueprints to an extent, and I'm like hardly even tapped into what I truly know is possible and want. And so that's why I'm leading these conversations, is so that you are maybe brave enough to take that quiz, so that you're maybe brave enough to ask your partner to take the quiz. I'll post in the comments here as well, and if you do take the quiz and you are brave enough to share in the comments what you are, that'd be so freaking cool. So I'm going to post the link as well here, so you can do the quiz. But then there's also a free training that's happening tomorrow night. I'm definitely going to be on it, and I'm going to ask my partner tonight if he'll join me on it. Either way, I'm going to do it. As long as baby is sleeping, one of us will get to watch it. And the free training is going to dive deeper, because it's one thing to know it, and a lot of people have taken the quiz maybe in the past, or they've just taken it and they're kind of like, cool, interesting, like that kind of makes sense. But don't stop there. It's one thing to know it and okay, that's cool, but it's another thing to implement it. It's another thing to play with it, because the quiz is really the starting place. The quiz is kind of the like, what do I think works for me, or what does my brain thinks? But in the course that they offer and in the free training, it actually helps you to understand, how do I actually bring this into my relationship? What happens when I need what I want and they need what they want, and like neither one of us are willing to budge? Because that's what's happening in a lot of relationships. So I would love for you to take the quiz. I'd love for you to join me in the webinar. I'm going to be doing the course for the 3rd time coming up. I am like giddy excited about it. There's a reason. I didn't even really know that this was coming up until a few days ago. And there's a reason why my baby is sleeping better now, is because it's time for mom and dad to do this training again. And so do the quiz. Please do the quiz. But more importantly, have a conversation with your partner and ask them to do the quiz as well. Because what's really cool is when you start to see the differences and you start to see where the gaps might be. And so I want to tell you a little bit, if you have any questions about what I've shared, about my blueprint, about any of the blueprints, there's 5 of them, post it in the comments for sure. So of course I'm promoting this and helping my friend Jai and Ian, because they've changed my life. I literally adore their work so much. but I share this with every single client. All year long, I don't get paid a cent to share this with every single client. I love this work so much. It is so transformative. There is not a better teacher. There is not a better method for intimacy and sexuality in relationships. It's the best. They just reshot the entire program. It's beautiful. I watched like an intro video and I called Ian back, who's Jaya's partner, and I'm like, I had tears. I'm like, this is so beautiful. I cannot wait to dive into it again. I went through it the first time and it was so transformative, and it was like choppy and long and, just the first version, and it was incredible. So I'm very excited to dive into this. Any questions, feel free to post them. Most people just like to watch and then privately message me. Okay, so what I will just share to sort of wrap up, because my baby's sleeping and I can't even believe I'm getting this in, so she might wake up soon, is that I want to talk about my blueprints for a minute and what I've noticed. So I would say I'm primarily energetic for sure. I have, according to the quiz, I have a 3-way tie for first place. But like I said, that's a starting place. The next place is, and they teach you in the course, is how to go into your body, how to let your body guide. Because I think sometimes we get into our head about sex, what we like, what we don't like, what we want, what we're mad about, what isn't working, what we've got to do tomorrow. We get in our head. And so there's some practices that I really love in the course that help you to get your body to tell you what works for you. And so primarily I'm an energetic. So what that means for me is that I love flirting. I love anticipation. I love to be teased. And so that can be a dynamic that you create in your relationship, right? I want and need so much more flirting in my relationship. When we're hostile towards one another, it's like the opposite of that. And I am like 100% not turned on or not desiring it. You know how some people can like have sex when they're mad or frustrated? No, not me. But that is all also about my blueprint. And that's an interesting quality about my blueprint. Although if I got into my kinky mind, I might be able to use that energy. I haven't been able to do that yet, but I'll work on it. Because breakup sex or makeup sex apparently is really hot. You have lots of clients who are like, we fight and we have really great sex, so I don't really know if I want to stop fighting. That's definitely not me. So energetic, that's what energetic is. I also don't like to be touched too quickly. I want to anticipate the touch. I can feel him when he's like away from me, just standing in front of me, looking at me, and so he is a primary sexual. And so his natural situation is to just sort of come and grab me or to touch me, because he's very touchy. His love language is physical touch. And that just like literally sends shivers through me. I've learned to soften that a little bit, to not be so sensitive as well. That's also a part of it. This isn't just about get my needs met. This is also about how do you, because every blueprint has some shadows, has some downsides, has some problems that they bring. The energetic is so sensitive. When I first learned about this, I was so sensitive. My partner could hardly look at me and I'd be like, he wants sex, oh my God. And I just like would shut down. I was so sensitive. I would lay in bed at night and like, he wasn't even touching me, but I could feel him wanting to touch me. And it would just, drive me crazy, not in the good way. So there's positives and there's negatives to each side. So the program and the training that's going to come up, the free training tomorrow that I'm going to be on, that I would love for you to join me, link is in the comments, is going to help you to implement this and understand all the sides of the blueprint. And we all have the ability to step into all of them. There might be just some that you are primarily in right now. So kinky was the one that popped up for me slowly but surely later on in my journey. And what's really cool is when I have followed the crumbs of my turn on, that makes a lot of sense. Like I love movies about cheating. I love affairs, and I'm fine to admit that now. I used to literally like hide when I would watch those types of movies because I was embarrassed or ashamed that I liked those types of movies. But there's always so much tension. There's so much taboo. Like, oh, we shouldn't do this. And like, so kinky is all about what's taboo for you, and it is a huge range. For some people it can be like 50 Shades of Grey. For other people it can just be like sex not in missionary position or sex in the kitchen. And so I would notice lots of things about me. Also, I would feel a lot of attraction, not only the anticipation of like flirting with people I would really enjoy, but also like, when you're not supposed to be doing something, like that was always really exciting for me. There's probably a reason that most of my life and in high school, if I had a boyfriend, like I would just want to kiss other boys. I didn't want to break up with them. I didn't. I wanted to be in those relationships, but I wanted to kiss other boys because it was a little bit naughty and it was a little bit taboo. And so it's like all these things about myself that I slowly over time learned was wrong or bad, and then suppressed and tied up and shut down. And then all of a sudden now I'm supposed to be like intimate and this like erotic being with my partner, and be in a long-term relationship. It's very confusing. And very difficult to be successful in. And so it's been really fun to play, and too, my partner has always learned, and from his programming, like to be a good man, consent, and like his parents are beautiful people and taught him boundaries and respect of a woman. And so all of a sudden when I'm like bringing in these kink desires and I'm like, once I'm open, so I need to be open energetically, I need you to go really slow and all these things. But once I'm open, once I'm turned on, that's when sort of more of the physical kink, because there's also mental and psychological and emotional kink as well. Like someone texted me randomly the other day, and I didn't know who they were, and it was kind of like, because they had sent like a really like kind of pretty like flirtatious but just a lovely comment. And I was like, oh, who is this? And it's like, oh, wouldn't you like to know? Like that type of thing. Like, I love that shit. I was like, as long as you're not a creepy stalker. And so those types of things could be a little bit kinky, but also energetic because there's that space. So back to my partner being such a good man is that's what he learned. And that's the programming that we teach men, which is awesome and the foundation. But then once you get into having conversations, being consenting adults, what can happen is then you can say, hey, this is what I actually like and this is what I actually want. And I would love for you to, like push me around a little bit. I would love for you to spank me, or I would love for you to, I don't know, whatever you like. I want to be tied to the bed. I want to be what? You just think you're fancy. I don't even know that much about kink, to be honest. I feel like I'm like such a little, newbie. But I'm open to having the conversation because I think it's so fascinating how we shut down these desires. And so I would ask these things of my partner, and in the beginning, like I felt totally weird asking them or saying that's what I wanted, but then he would also be like, okay, like, cause his programming is like, be nice, be gentle, be, and so you're both going through this learning process. And so there's so much to learn is what I'm saying. And when you are in long-term relationship, not only does your body change, because then I had kids. I'm jumping all over the place, but just follow me here. Because then I had a kid, and then I had some vaginal tears, and then I didn't want to have sex for many, many months because I was literally terrified. And then my body also changed, and how I wanted to be touched or approached was also different. And so what happens is most people are not having these conversations. They've never had them. They're not having them. They're not learning new things. They're doing the same thing over and over again. They've been doing the same thing from relationship to relationship. And then we go through these big changes, and it's like no wonder so many of my clients have kids, and all of a sudden one partner is just like not interested. Not only is there the pressure, the stress, the overwhelm, the exhaustion, all of that, but also they don't understand each other anymore. They don't understand what they need or what they want, or they have desires that aren't being expressed. I'm discovering so many desires of mine that are not expressed. So many ways of being just out in public as well. Just how I live my life from these blueprints. I find, it's so taboo to like, in a lot of ways to have male friends or to talk to men when you're in a relationship, or vice versa. A lot of times it's like you've got your man or you've got your partner and you don't talk to other people. That's a very common thing. But that literally gives me life. Like if I was to like hang out in a very respectful way, but had like intimate, valuable conversation with men, you can bet I'm going to be home and come to my partner so much better, so much more in love, so much more wanting to be intimate, having much more desire and turn on. But oftentimes that's like taboo in a relationship. Even talking about this publicly is taboo. I'm totally turned on having this conversation with you guys right now. And turn on isn't like penetrate me, like, ugh, like that's such a sexual approach. So that doesn't resonate for me, because that, if you know, my blueprint, I have like, let me see, I think it's like 3% or something of me is sexual. So a very, very small percentage of me. And that's what a lot of people are like, what? You're not sexual? You talk about sex all the time. I know. There is so many ways to approach intimacy and so many ways to approach your eroticism. I like that she's changed the word from like sexual, because we think about sexual as one way, but instead think of yourself as an erotic being. Think of your erotic life, your orgasmic potential, your pleasure, your turn on. And there's so many ways to approach this. So many ways. So, did you do the quiz? Why haven't you done the quiz yet? Are you resistant to doing the quiz? Are you scared to do the quiz? I get that if you are. And to me, one of my biggest fears was that I was going to die or stay in this relationship and never get to experience like awesome intimacy. To know, and I felt like I had this sort of eroticism, I'll call it, or sexuality inside of me, but like I just didn't know how to express it. And then, you know, even growing up, I remember like loving wearing belly shirts, and that was just like a form of expression. I loved wearing belly shirts, and then it was like not okay. And I remember it being like, that's inappropriate. And then I started developing boobs very early, and I have large boobs. And I remember it being in grade 5 and like wearing a tank top and getting told by teachers like, oh, you need to put on a sweater, like that's inappropriate. And so it's like, even, you know, just the ways of being sensual, you know, just like having a tank top on, okay, like that gets your body out in the fresh air, like this is sensual. Like if I could wear tank tops like year round, like I hate wearing long clothes, and it's because it just, to me, it traps my turn on and my desire. And turn on and desire is not about having sex. It's not like I'm walking around thinking about penetration and sex all the time. Turn on is vitality. Turn on is your magnetism, is your heart, is your, this is my energetic talking. Turn on and sex and intimacy is about who you are and about how you navigate and how you interact with the world. It's not about just what happens in the bedroom. And when we condense it to what happens in the bedroom, it's really painful. It's really toxic. It's really unsatisfying. And it sets us up for divorce. It sets us up for cheating. All the things. Also, maybe you've been someone who's cheated. Maybe you've been someone who's really wanted to cheat. I'm curious, because I heard this story one time that it literally broke and opened my heart. I like fell in love with this man who cheated on his wife when he was sharing this story, because he said, you know, he had these desires that he wanted to express, and so he cheated because he didn't feel like he could bring them into the relationship, because he just saw his wife as this like beautiful angel, and he's like, I couldn't do that to her. So he never shared this side of himself with her. So instead he really hurt her because he didn't know how and didn't have permission or the skills or the language to be able to understand and express himself. What was really cool is through healing the relationship, which took time, she actually had some of those same desires. So had they have been able to communicate, had they have been able to ask for what they wanted and get their needs met, maybe things would have been different. And so even if you have sex and you enjoy it and it's easy and it's fulfilling and you do it and it's done, I just encourage you to consider, because I know there's a lot of people out there that's like, that sex is easy for, and I just do it and it's done and it's fun and it's easy. And so, okay, but I want to like one up you here and just encourage you to reach for more. What if there was a potential, an experience waiting for you that is gonna like totally blow you into your next level of success in your business, your next level of confidence, your next level of health, because sexuality is a need of life. It is a foundation in life, you know, the shelter, food, water, sex. It's in there. And I think that we pull away from it because of our upbringing, we pull away from it because of our cultural conditioning. But I want you to lean into it. I want you to think about how you can have more vitality and more life and more fulfillment. What if there's more for you out there? And I know there is. So I'm going to be talking for the next couple of weeks about my experience with this, how I'm implementing it, you know, what's happening in my life with it, what's not worked, where we're colliding, where we're struggling as well. So I want to be able to bring this conversation to you because I think it is really, really necessary to know that you are not alone, that all your desires are possible, that it is possible to transform the intimacy and sexuality and dynamic in a relationship. I see it all the time. And sexuality is one big piece of that. So I invite you to do the quiz and as well sign up for the webinar. I'll put the link in the comments one more time. Boom, it's in. Sign up for the training tomorrow night. I'll be watching with my partner. And then we can talk about it. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to send me a message. I'll be talking lots about this over the next couple weeks. So thanks so much for being here and go do the quiz. Bye.